Hello and welcome to today's webinar, How Quorum Health Resources is Driving Business Performance. My name is Jürgen Utis. I'm with Workday, and I would like to go over a few housekeeping items before we get started. If you should have any technical questions, please click on the help icon at the bottom of the On24 console. Also, during the program, please submit questions at any time using the Q&A widget on the bottom left. We will address questions at the end of this webinar. Make sure to check out the resources widget for more information on Workday for Professional Services. And lastly, you will get a link to the recording of this webinar for on-demand viewing. And now it's my pleasure to introduce today's speakers. Our first speaker is Mark David. He's the Director of Industry Strategy here at Workday. He has over 20 years of experience working in the professional services and technology industries. Mark has previous professional services experience as a consultant, project manager, regional services owner, and sales leader. He has spent the last 10 years focused on providing software solutions for services and technology firms in the area of professional services automation, human capital management, scheduling, planning, and financials. Our second speaker is Shannon Williams. He's the Vice President of Project Management at Quorum Health Resources. Shannon has worked with consultants to create many of the methodologies used in project management for the entire organization. Shannon and his team uses project management standards for the PM Book of Knowledge and the Project Management Institute to ensure projects run smoothly. His team gets engaged in any project that spans multiple consulting practices or multiple hospital departments. He has been involved in greenfield hospital projects and replacement hospital construction projects and brings over 25 years of experience to Quorum of overall IT experience and also 23 years of experience in the healthcare industry. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Mark.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jürgen, and let's get started, everybody. So I'll just quickly go through the agenda here. We definitely want to get to the Quorum story. I want to do a little bit of grounding for everybody on the call. We're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing in Workday for Professional Services, and we definitely wanted to give you an introduction to Workday PSA. Some of you probably have had an introduction. Others, we want to respect the fact that you want to learn more about the solution that we provide to the market. I'll turn it over to Shannon. Shannon's got a great story about what they're doing to run their professional services business with Workday Solutions. And we'll wrap up this meeting with Q&A. So with that, let me get into a little bit of the discussion around professional services. So we know that the professional services industry, like a lot of other services-based industries, is reaching a point where the technical skills and these kind of in-demand skills are not meeting the overall macro market demand. And we call this the talent cliff for professional services. So here, the challenge of this industry is that talent's actually an inseparable part. It's the people are your products, it's where your revenue is coming from. And if you're having, like what we're seeing in the industry, high attrition rates, and at the same time having trouble hiring the right people, this creates a lot of pressure on the business. So again, companies seem to be struggling with having a clear view of what are the in-demand skills, not just the people, but the skills and the resources they need to meet that demand. In addition to that, we see that the industry is under pretty severe profitability pressure. So this happens for a couple of reasons. One, it's getting harder to win and harder to differentiate business. A lot of the benchmark data in the industry shows that the bid-to-win ratios continue to decline. So customers are more open. They don't always go for the incumbent professional services provider. They're more willing to kind of look at alternative, lower-cost resource options. And so, again, that causes a profitability pressure. The other aspect of profitability pressure that we see in the industry is that there is generally this trend of using external workers, so contractor, contingent labor workers. And obviously, if you're using those type of workers, then that has a different cost load than your own internal employees. So really, the point here is that companies really need that clear view of profitability down at the project level, understanding, if that's going to roll up and meet their overall company profitability objectives. We also see that the industry is under a level of transformation. There's a lot of routes to market being discussed within the industry and delivery approaches. Some of these aren't new, obviously, like shared services, pooled resources, on-site, off-site. Delivery approaches have been around and are continuing to be discussed. But then we see in the industry an increase in other types of product and services, and what we could maybe bucket into digital products. So this could be research, this could be subscription products, this could be other kind of software-like analytics that are pervasive within the services industry. In fact, there's a Forrester research out there, a benchmark study that suggested that between 40 and 50% of the revenue in professional services by 2020 will be coming from non-project related delivery. I think a lot of us are a little bit skeptical that it might reach that level, but still kind of shows you that there will be transformation happening within the industry going forward. And then the last part here is, and a lot of you might be dealing with this today, is that there's a level of fragmented environment, and then there's kind of sometimes an over-focus of certain process disciplines within professional services. So we'll get into the fragmented landscapes that we see in a couple slides, but we also see that HCM and the people side of the equation from a systems perspective is usually underinvested, and this continues to come up in a lot of the benchmark studies that happen in this industry. And we see a lot of investment in CRM. We're starting to see greater investment in PSA and financial solutions, but HCM tends to really lag those solution areas, which is interesting for an industry that is people-based. Okay. There's two other macro trends just to kind of, again, keep your eye on. We mentioned the first one here on the left, where the Forrester study had mentioned that about between 40 and 50% of the products are becoming through other alternative revenue streams. So think about that as you look at solutions. Your solution and evaluation process should not just consider, hey, I want to find the PSA solution that's going to fit my needs today, and we're running projects this way. It also needs to be a solution that can extend out and meet a variety of market challenges and a variety of different delivery models and approaches. So that's definitely clear as this industry and business is changing and transforming. The other aspect here is that the workers themselves are changing. There's a lot of studies talking to the fact, especially in the younger worker segments, that whether you call them contingent labor or contractors or freelancers, or they're working in projects or external gigs for companies, that this whole idea of on-demand worker is increasing, that people are getting more comfortable being independent, and people are getting more comfortable working from project to project. And so that's going to be, I think, a direct impact on this industry. And we're already starting to see it, right? I mentioned some of the profitability pressure associated with the use of contractors and contingent labor, the challenges that we're having finding the right resources in terms of the hiring rates that we're seeing in the industry. So again, kind of consider those solutions that will allow you to get visibility not only to the internal workforce, but also what's happening in the available worker pools outside of your company. So with that, Workday PSA, we built our solution with some of these challenges in mind, right? So first, we'll talk a lot about this today, the people-focused approach of Workday PSA. So one thing for sure, and I'll show you kind of what this looks like in the solution, that we wanted to make sure that out of the box, you had access to all that core worker data, skills, and competency information. And that can be used for all your financial reporting. That could be used for your professional services automation, resource assignment process, for your project, understanding of how you're loading up workers on a project. And so we wanted to intertwine the people side of the business with the PSA and the financial side. We also understood that a lot of companies want to keep their best resources. We talked about that attrition rate, that pretty high attrition rate. So developing talent and kind of managing that ongoing performance within this industry tends to be a challenge, something that I think a lot of us don't do, right? But we talk about, we talk a mean game here, but we don't really spend the time every project understanding, are we matching the needs of the company, but also needs of the worker? And we've done a lot to allow you to understand what the project level performance and talent is. We plan to do a lot more in this area, and it's a key topic for us. And then also, if you're planning at the overall workforce planning and financial planning level, you want that to tie down to the projects that you're doing. So if you're loading certain project roles or resources, you want to be able to roll that up effectively to how you're managing your business. And this is a very key topic for Workday. We have a lot of great capabilities today, and we plan to do a lot more in this area, being able to tie at the project execution level with the overall plan that you're running your company on. Also, we talked about not only just the people focus, but also all the innovation and change that's happening in this industry, right? So we spent a lot of time trying to create as much agility within our billing and revenue management approaches in our PSA solution. So we have a project billing solution. Of course, we can handle some of the standard project methodologies like time and material and fixed fee, but we also know that there's other project approaches that companies are looking at, and we're investing in areas like being able to do retainer or holdback type projects, prepayment projects, and contingency projects. So a lot of variety in the types of projects, but also lots of variety in the way you bill. So are you billing differently, obviously by project role? That's very traditional, but are you billing differently by the task within the project, or whether you're on-site or off-site, or the type of service or the region? And providing a lot of flexibility in the way that you can define those billing rules and apply them to customers. And we think that's really going to help you differentiate your services to the market. We also, as mentioned before, want to provide a lot of flexibility in the way that we allow you to plan. So we've made, and you'll see this in the tool, some investments on how you can forecast and budget within this our solution. We're planning to do a lot more in that area, but here we focus on providing a high level of usability, because what we've heard is that everyone plans sort of differently. So yes, the way you do budgeting and opportunity planning for services, you might feel like that's a pretty standard process, but I can tell you, going across many companies, everyone sort of has their own spreadsheet or their own tools, and they tend to do things somewhat different. I mean, for sure, there's definitely patterns that we build in our solution, but again, our strategy here is to provide a lot of flexibility. And then, of course, we want to make sure if you make an investment in a PSA solution, that it's a modern tool, it's cloud-based, it has kind of native analytics and all the things that the Workday platform provides. So as we turn to Workday and why Workday for professional services, so for those that are not Workday customers, one of the key things we're very proud of is our 97% customer satisfaction. This is really extremely high for the enterprise software market, and that's because we're very honest with our customers. We work with them. We let them know very openly where we're going with our solution, and we want to make sure we have high level of customer satisfaction in that approach. But we also, work very collaboratively with them to build things into our roadmap. So we can discuss that if you have any questions on how customers can influence our roadmap. We also focus on people-based businesses, right? So Workday is not going after financials and operational processes of manufacturers. We are focused on those service and service-oriented businesses, and that's our DNA, right? So we're very focused on that. And then we also recognize in professional services that every sub-industry is unique, right? So if you're a law firm, that's very different than if you're in staffing, which is very different if you're in kind of more traditional consulting or engineering services, et cetera, right? And so we don't discount those uniqueness within our solutions, but we're also very honest on who and what we can sell to within Workday, and make sure that we work with our customers and they can align their roadmaps and investments appropriately. And then we also felt that we wanted to support professional services enough that we built a dedicated operational solution. So we have a dedicated PSA solution as a strategic investment topic at Workday, and we plan to do a lot more. So I'm going to go into that solution right now, give you a quick introduction of the Workday Professional Services Automation solution. And as we talked about before, right, what we want to do is bring all this together within PSA. And we felt PSA was sort of a linchpin across this landscape. So, of course, you have your HCM and recruiting solutions, and you have your local project solutions and billing and time and expense. And we thought that, the project side, the billing side of that, the time entry and expense entry for projects needed to be able to directly link to these solutions, help customers in this kind of fragmented environment. So if you think about if you want to walk away from this webcast today and you want to think about Workday and what we do that's a little bit different from other PSA solutions in the marketplace, of course, we talk about the single solution, not only just on the PSA financial side, but also tied to HCM, right? Talent and skills, we can access that information directly as the system of record. So a lot of customers we talk to, they say, well, we need to do a better job matching our demand picture, our customer demand picture, project demand picture to the supply. But it's not just based on availability, right? It's based on having the right person with the right skill set, whether that be industry domain or a certain skill or language consideration that's going to meet the needs of those customers, right? So we wanted to architect our PSA solution so you had access to that information. The other thing we focused on was on the resource management piece, right? We continually heard as we talked to analysts and customers, everyone said the biggest opportunity we have, we have some tools, we're gaining some ground on the financial side and the billing side, but it doesn't seem like anyone's really kind of attacking this resource management challenge. And when we looked at the top issues that companies had, the one that bubbled up all the time was availability, understanding the availability of my resources to meet my customer demand. And so we've really focused, and you'll see the investments we're making around resource management. Agile billing and revenue, we talked about that, so providing as much agility within the process of PSA. And what PSA really represents is a couple components within the Workday landscape. So it's our projects capability, it's our project billing capability, our time tracking and expenses. The projects allow you to do the resource management. It allows you to do the project definition. Project billing allows you to define the project billing approach you want to use, the setup of the contract. It provides the opportunity to provide rule definitions, so all those kind of rule variations we talked about, and provides a lot of flexibility in how you do that. Our time tracking capability has native understanding of projects, so as you enter time, you can enter time against project or task. Also, our expenses as well too have an understanding of projects. So we feel we have a full scope of PSA capabilities, and we'll kind of go into the details of that piece by piece next. All right. So maybe just I'll quickly go through this because we've talked a lot about kind of the unified approach, and I want to get into the capabilities themselves. So here is talked about before, our PSA solution accesses information from a variety of areas within Workday. Human capital side, it could be the HCM talent payroll pieces. On the financial side, it could be areas around budgeting, billing, revenue, different cost center information, and PSA is where we're doing all the project definition, the resource management, and all the planning and forecasting that you need to do for the operational side of your business. So this allows us to answer very complex questions because it's all within one unified approach that are very difficult to answer with fragmented environments. So what's the actual cost breakdown of the project by different project roles and activities, and being able to roll that up to an overall financial budget and costing view. Because we have the payroll information within Workday, because we have the fully burdened costs, we have that worker information within the HCM side of the equation. Apply that across different projects. Secondly, again, we can take a look at what skills are most in demand on my projects, drawing that information out of talent, kind of looking at that from a resource manager perspective. And then finally, just another example here is which projects are driving my revenue today and in the future. So by having the project definition, having the forecasting capabilities on those projects, we can forecast out the load of those projects and allow you to kind of get a future picture of revenue. So with that, how this comes together and looks like within Workday PSA, and this is just our main dashboard capability. So first, if you're not familiar with Workday, we're very analytical in nature, meaning the fact that you can build dashboards, you can build reports within the tool. You don't need a separate BI solution. It's a very modern BI approach and presentation layer. So again, one of the areas I think we really differentiate compared to other PSA solutions is the ability to do kind of native dashboarding and analytics. And this gives you an example of being able to see project information, resource information, and financial information, and even like HCM breakdown information within one view. Right, so instead of going to different solutions in different areas, you can kind of pull that information up And you can also access the native data behind this very easily. So we can drill into the core transactions and data behind our reports and dashboards without having to, again, navigate through other solutions or between a BI layer and our native PSA solution. So with PSA, so as mentioned before, we are the people system of record. So here we have the embedded talent and skills and all the information about that worker, their experience, their skills, their competencies, the projects they've worked on, and we expose as much of that information as needed within our project's capability. We also are a little bit different because we can show availability in a unique way. Of course, we can aggregate the information across all the project resource assignments, but we can also tap into other native parts of our platform, like time off. So again, you can easily mesh your time off and vacation schedules, absence schedules with the project data to give you a fuller view of availability. And then as we kind of hit on, and you look at and you make these decisions around resources for your projects and look at the inventory and the people you have, you can start to do planning and even more executional resource assignment based on the people and all the information kind of about those people and a one sort of streamlined approach, right? So everything can be presented about those people compared to what the projects that they've done and so forth, and matching that up against what's required for the project themselves. As we talk about the resource demand piece here then, so taking that core information, that core construct from Workday PSA, we can look at then the resource demand. So here we start within Workday at the opportunity level. So we have, again, the concept of an opportunity within Workday. We're not a CRM solution, but we can draw in CRM data. So we have a lot of open integration options and customers pulling in that data within Workday. We can track opportunity demands within Workday. We can translate project requirements, either kind of define projects or early stage project requirements. We can define that by a specific person we want to put in to a project, or if it's still kind of early stage, we can just do the requirement based on like a project role, such as like just a project manager. You can do that for a worker or group of workers if you're pulling, let's say, offsite resources together for a project. And then you can also look at the different requirements and, again, kind of natively pulling up those requirements associated with that role, whether that be language requirements, whether that be certain skill requirements for a project. We can utilize that information today for the requirements of demand, but also plan in the future so you can forecast your future requirements within Workday PSA. So we have forecasting capability within Workday PSA. And then you can, of course, as mentioning before, where we have that dashboarding, native dashboarding capability, you can pull all that information into an easy zoom view of what your resource demand is and your resource breakdown, assignment breakdown is. And you can drill into these dashboards and then see, again, some of that detailed information that I just showed you previously. On the flip side, if you're looking at how do I match that demand within Workday, so we have tools like the Staff Projects tool within Workday, which allow you to see an aggregate picture of the different projects that demand. You can quickly then, from that aggregate picture, go and find workers. So I think this is a very unique capability within Workday to be able to search and match either the pre-described requirements, as we showed you before. If you kind of put in like a project manager role with certain language requirements or skill requirements, that can actually auto-populate into our search feature, or you can do more exploratory search for workers within Workday PSA. Of course, then we show you how the availability of these workers, and this is a full view of availability between what's planned today, what's forecasted tomorrow, what's if they're on leave or if they're on vacation. We again pull in that information so you get a full view of availability. And then again, as talked about before, will allow you to do those comparative views to make the resource assignment and matching process. So in this area, we plan to do a lot more within resource management. So we have, in 2017, we're going to be creating dedicated capabilities for resource managers. We think this is really cool, very unique, where you're able to kind of look at a more programmatic approach to staffing. So what's my queue? What's the highest priority of that queue? What is kind of the view of my worker allocation breakdown? What do I need to staff? Being more prescriptive for these resource managers, and giving them a kind of more of a toolkit, a centralized toolkit to manage the business, to match your demand and supply and really manage your business overall. Continuing on, just to give you a little bit more information, so that agile billing and revenue management approach, right? So within Workday, you can view your overall financial picture of your projects within Workday, and of course, manage those overall financials in terms of start to finish. We can also provide, and we talked about this before, a lot of flexibility in the billing approach. So whether you want to define rules on time, on expenses, on time for certain tasks, maybe you're billing differently for training versus project initiation versus core project activities like your design and testing phase, whether you're billing different by resource, role, by region, by whether that work's being performed on-site or off-site. We have a lot of flexibility on how you can tag different work types, worker types, and utilize that to drive your project billing rules. And then we've done a lot of work, and we know this is extremely important in professional services, to allow, whether it's a project manager, whether it's an invoice specialist, or there might be multiple people involved in approving the time, approving the billing, approving the invoices to go out, providing them a more easy approach and kind of a workbench approach to manage that whole contract to cash process associated with getting those invoices out on time and understanding where you are in that cycle to meet the revenue associated with your business. Okay, and then finally, just again, to hit on in terms of the other components of our tool, project time, entry, project expense, and here we really try to focus on user experience, right? So there's a variety of different parts of our PSA solution which are mobile enabled. So if you've never used the Workday mobile app, it is extremely consumer grade. It's probably one of the most consumer grade enterprise mobile apps that are out there on the market across any different solution. And so we put more capabilities into that mobile app. In fact, project time, project expense. I know I've heard from a lot of people, and myself personally, I do almost 100% of my project expenses fully on the mobile app. I rarely go into the desktop to do it. And that's really changing the game and the user experience, because I know that can be a very painful process for many consultants on the road. And it makes it quite painless as you go through that process, and allows you to capture that revenue, that expense stream, and make sure that that's timely as you build that through to your customers or look at that as a cost picture within your project financials. Okay, so with that, I'll turn it over to Shannon. He's going to be giving you some information around Quorum Health resources and what they do and how they use the Workday solution.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. I'll just start with a little bit of background about who Quorum Health Resources is. Our focus, of course, as a name, is on providing consulting services for the healthcare industry, hospitals, clinics, anything in healthcare, really. $85.5 million is our annual revenue. We have about 295 employees and around 160 clients. Of course, that number fluctuates. And really, we break down our functional areas, our business areas, into 5 key areas. One is consulting services, which we do every day all over the U.S., and the other one is operation support, which we manage about 100 different hospitals, and that's really where we focus our time and effort on that side of the business. And then we have our Learning Institute, where we provide webinars and educational sessions all over. And we have our group purchasing organization, QPA, and we have some in-house developed applications like productivity and some financial tools there as well. And then as far as our stretch, we actually are all over the U.S., but we do have 4 key areas of products we sell, and that is in the planning, assessment, advisory, and affiliations areas. But we have a number of managed hospitals all over the U.S. that we for sure sell all these services to. Then we have external clients that we also have consulting services provided to. Okay, let's talk a little bit about our Workday journey and where we were before and where we've been since we went on Workday. And really, we went live with Workday about 3 years ago now. It may be not quite 3, but it's got to be close. And before that, we had a bunch of disconnected systems. I remember people putting data entry in 2 different times. You'd put your time in one place, you'd put your billing in another place. And really, we had so many different tools, and none of the tools were very good. So we didn't have any way of knowing throughout the middle of a project what was the health of our project at any stage, really, until we got to the very end. And then it was kind of too late, right? You can't course correct at that point. And we went live with HCM and PSA initially and some financials initially, and we just did payroll last year. And today, all of our consultants track their time and expenses on Workday 100%. We also have some non-client projects that are tracked in Workday, or capital projects and that kind of thing, internal projects. And we use the PSA project setup to manage all those. So it's been a really good tool and a good learning experience over the last couple of years, and it's actually grown with us as well. Now, the rest of the journey where we're at today, we get an update about every 6 months now, and we just went live with Workday 28 just last weekend. I haven't had time to dig into everything that's in there yet, but I'm looking forward to what's out there. But really, Workday has listened to us throughout the whole cycle. Some of the enhancements we see come out in 28 and previous versions have been exactly from our conversations we've had with them. And not just a piece of it, but when we said we need this, they actually ask us, more detail about what you need. So the releases are not just releases some other company wanted. We see what we need in our releases. And we also use Microsoft Dynamics for our pricing and CRM tool today. We have some of it interfaced to Workday, like the resources and rates and customers, but we're still working on the next step, which is getting projects over. We just haven't had a priority yet, but we will be working on that more soon. And we're about to install a resource scheduling piece just because it didn't quite fit the calendaring need we have today. But I'm hoping to can that in, when 29 comes out, maybe 30 at the worst. But some of it I think we'll get rid of in 28 if I have time to look at it. But we'll use the forecasting in the PSA module to kind of get rid of that scheduling package in the future here. And even in version 28, they just released some changes that we asked for, and that was to do the forecasting by hours and not by percentage of utilization. And that's going to be a big benefit to us. And let's talk a little bit about some of the benefits we've seen so far. Now, we do create some reports. We do create some reports today that are custom that really allow us to kind of manage where we're at on any project at any point in time, and also it helps us manage our utilization reporting. In consulting, if you're not billable or you're not billing the client, you need to be working on something different, right? So we created these individual reports just to do that. We also use a ton of the CAN reports that they have out there as well. But the main thing for us is that managing a project is not a one-time event. You don't just set it up once and be done with it. You have to constantly look at it, and the reports help us do that across the organization. So we can push down these reports to individual practice leaders and watch their metrics individually. And actually, some of the flags you see on the screen here are good examples of how they alert you to unique things you need to be paying attention to. Okay, on the PSA side, we actually do create some custom reports outside of Workday, where we have our Microsoft Dynamics CRM for the pipeline data, and we also have the Workday data as well. We don't do much of that. I can think of one instance where we do that. Now we're trying to get everything we can project-wise into Workday, even prior to the opportunity being closed. So if it's 75% qualified, we go ahead and push it over there if we can. All right, and we do use one spreadsheet now that I know I will get rid of in version 29 for sure, but we just use it to kind of track from what we sold versus what we put in Workday. So there's a little bit of a gap there between what you sell and then what you put in Workday, because sometimes you might put a role or a placeholder in your CRM package when you sell something, but then when you get to Workday, then you have to start finding the right resources. It's not just a placeholder. So we do that today, but like I said, I think that'll go away soon, as soon as we have time to look into that more in 28 and 29. Now, this next section of slides is going to sound like a sales pitch, but I actually created them. I didn't mean them to be that way, but we have 3 areas of focus that we really have, Workday has really helped us out the most. And the first one is the project health and P&L reporting. And it is a very scalable system. It works for small projects and works for large projects. It's very flexible. We have some custom fields in there, and we can create our own reports. There's a bunch of flexibility in there that's just designed in the system. We don't have to go figure out how to do everything. It's just automatically there. We can even add our own task types and configure those different ways to do billing even. And we use our dashboards like crazy. Those have been one of the best benefits we've seen over the last couple of years. We can now create a dashboard for that individual person that when they pull it up, it actually helps them manage their practice or their project, whichever one it is. And we have about 4 dashboards today that do that same thing. And then the second area is really time and utilization tracking. Like I said before, if you don't watch your utilization, you're just wasting money. But it allows us to categorize all of our task types, our type of time, and it also allows us to customize each project with that same intention as well. And we have all of our users entering the time on the mobile app and expenses as well. And the integration and billing is kind of a common thing, but it's also very beneficial. Everything we do in our time and our utilization in our projects automatically goes over there to the billing side. And we can set up different types of billing based on our customer or our contracts. And it also allows our project managers to update milestones, and then that produces the billing as well. And our accountants will tell you they use it for revenue recognition almost daily, and it's a great tool to do that. Mark, I think it's it for me. I'll hand it back over to you.
Thanks, Shannon. I'll take over. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with Workday. And we have time for some Q&A, and we have a couple of questions that came in that I want to kind of divvy out to you guys. So why don't we start with Mark? Mark, how do your customers influence your roadmap for Workday?
Yeah, and I think Shannon had brought this up, right? So I think this is a little bit unique. And Workday, I mean, there's no perfect formula here, but I think, being part of other enterprise software companies, I think they've done it, or they've tried to do it the best. We have a couple different approaches. One, we actually have an online forum called Workday Community, where customers are part of, and they propose enhancements. People can vote on those enhancements, and we have a certain number of enhancements for every release we try to target into our innovation cycle. Usually between 30 and 40% of the capabilities we are releasing directly come from the Workday community input. So this is more kind of a collaborative online mechanism that drives the future for our solutions. PSA is no different there, and we actively use these things called brainstorms, which are the requirements in Workday community. The other thing I think that we do that's pretty unique is that we have a dedicated advisory council and forum. So we really try to share with our advisory council as much of what we're planning to do, but we kind of keep it open, where we can get a lot of our customers to understand clearly what our plans are for the next release or two, but we also can adjust and be nimble where we sort of reserve capacity for customers we're working with every release. So it's, again, we have a direct kind of channel with our customer advisory council, and then we have kind of more of a community-based collaborative channel where we can grab requirements and see what's the most popular requirements and use that to drive our roadmap. The final thing here just around this is, and I think it was touched on as well too, we do 2 releases a year. And so in terms of the cloud world, that's relatively fast. I think we went from 3 releases to 2. Our customers basically told us that 2 was probably a better number just because they can only consume so much themselves as well too. At the same time, 2 allows us to deliver a lot of capability. So usually when we're talking to a customer about, hey, this is something that is a key requirement for your business, I mean, we try to get that in, 2 or 3 releases out at the worst, right? So you're talking 12 months or 18 months. It's really the worst case scenario in a lot of cases. As long as there's momentum around that release and it kind of fits our strategic direction, then I think we try to get that done as soon as we can.
All right, thank you. Got another question around focus with different types of sub-industries and professional services. Do we focus on any?
Yeah, so that's probably a very valid question, right? So we tend to focus on management consulting, technology consulting, embedded consulting within software companies and tech companies. We also have customers in the research and analytics space. We have some customers that are marketing services firms. We started to work with some accounting and advisory services firms. They have somewhat unique requirements, especially in the revenue space. So those are generally the target industries that we work with. So I know that there's a wide variety of other companies. For instance, you might be an engineering services firm. So there are some unique things around, contractors, the billing of methodologies that you do. Associated with engineering services firms. A lot of engineering services firms manage their business based off of work orders. Not all, but there are still some things we can work with them in the resource management, the kind of high-level planning area, but maybe in those industries we don't do all the billing and revenue that they need to do. But in terms of kind of full suite, where we really go after, and we have a lot of momentum around, it's that kind of management consultancy, technology consultancy, research, marketing, consultancy, the embedded services firms and software, and now, as I mentioned, the accounting side.
All right, thank you. 2 more questions that look like they're more for Shannon. Shannon, what new business processes are you looking at implementing at Quorum, and what's next for PSA?
Yeah, really, the 2 things I mentioned earlier were the forecasting and probably the project budgeting are the two biggies for us next with version 28, whatever changes were in that, and then 29 and 30 are coming out too. That's really our biggest focus. And then I guess the third one really is, to answer your question, is more integration with Microsoft Dynamics on the project side. We don't necessarily have to have that because it's working well today, but it decreases the chance of somebody typing a number wrong if I can integrate it over. So that's our next step on those.
And yeah, just a couple of points, and I think they're very valid. So you have the ability to do budgeting and planning today within the solution, but is kind of what we were talking about before is there's a lot of people do this in spreadsheets, so we're really trying to kind of think about that from a user design principle. Not that we want to have the same kind of disconnected processes and lack of control and security that a spreadsheet has, but can we provide a flexible user interface that's if it's not a direct spreadsheet, it's very spreadsheet-like, right? So I think that's kind of a key area that we're looking to improve those forecasting and budgeting capabilities around.
Yeah, and it's going to be really nice to have those in the same single app as everything else. I mean, that's a huge deal.
All right. Thank you. And Shannon, one more question for you. What challenges did you have to overcome in terms of people, product, adoption, analytics, et cetera? So any challenges you've had?
I would say the primary challenge we've had is the people side of the whole thing. The software part's been much easier than the people. When we started, we were going to decentralize our project setup and have all the practice leaders do their own projects and set them up and maintain them. What we discovered pretty quickly is that we need them focusing on selling the business and consulting with hospitals. So having them to manage projects as well or manage the setup of the project in Workday was just one more thing that they didn't really want to do. And honestly, if we do it in the PMO, which is what we started doing now, we ensure that everything is accurate, the data we're looking at from executive level is accurate, and nobody just forgot what they were doing and didn't do it. And it also allows us to be aware of what projects are out there and help them more than anything. So now we're using Workday as a PMO perspective to help the users do what they need to do. And, to mitigate some of that, the user piece of that, we've actually pushed out those dashboards to them and enhanced our dashboards so they have more data in front of them. So they don't have to go digging around for things. It's just easier on them when they're in 2 different states in a week. They can quickly go to their laptop and look at those dashboards and see where they're at on a certain project.
Okay, thank you. I see no more questions coming in, so at this point I would like to thank you, Shannon and Mark, very much for speaking today, and everyone on the line. Thank you so much for logging on. We hope you found this webcast helpful and enjoyable. Again, we will be sending out a recording shortly for you to review on demand, and have a great rest of your day.